Welcome to Packmates, a podcast about Magic the Gathering Limited, where we take a dive into the current limited formats. The Packmates are a group of cooperative card sharks that love drafting, hanging out, and going to F&M. Don't forget to check out our socials and join our Discord. Links are all in the description. And I am Robi, the resident Dirtle expert.
I'm Andrew, the resident Planeswalker correspondent.
And I'm Ryan, the blue proponent.
And
we are the Packmates. This week we're going to be talking about our F&M Phyrexia will be one draft, and then learning to pilot. A little bit of questions we kind of ask ourselves during the game, during each turn of the game.
Yep, just the fundies.
Yeah, some fundamentals. That's fundies for you, the older folks. This week we're gonna start off with Robi with his sweet F&M deck. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this week I did the thing that I've done forever in this format. It feels like basically what I force every week. But this week was kind of a little bit different. I don't think I really forced it. I ended up in Dimir, the poison deck. I really don't feel like I actually forced it this week though. I ended up with my first pick was the 1-mana 1/1 Death Touch guy with Toxic 1, the Billis Skull Dweller. Just because it was the strongest card in the pack, I felt like. I probably would have took a Hex Gold Slash or even of a Vorak if I saw one. But I ended up just taking that. And then my second pick was Blue Sun's Twilight, the X spell, blue spell. And I was like, I guess. I was still pretty timid from last week. So I kind of just sent a lot of the poison cards out into the wild. And if they came back, I was gonna play poison, but mostly just taking the strong cards. And I ended up going 3-0 doing that. But it definitely looked quite a bit different than most of my poison decks so far. But my main commons in this one were the Prologue to Phyrexia, probably. The Infectious Inquiries, which I had 3 of, which is ridiculous. And Bring the Ending, which was the 2-mana counter spell. And my uncommons, I had Distorted Curiosity, which is the 3-mana. It's basically divination that costs 1 if your opponent's corrupted. And then the Skull Dweller, the 1/1 toxic guy.
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah, 2 of them. Yeah, which is crazy, low key. I think that made probably one of the biggest differences in this deck. As opposed to most of the other versions I've had. Having 2 of those is just so strong. If you ever get one on turn 1, it just feels like you can't lose.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as rares go, I have the Blue Sun's Twilight, the X spell that steals something from your opponent, a creature. And I had 2 Dark Slick Shores, which is kind of silly. That kind of actually made a difference in my deck, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
My mana was just crazy good, just having those 2 Dark Slick Shores. And my biggest weakness for sure was the lack of black removal. I had a hunch that early on in the draft that the person next to me was probably in black. So I wasn't really relying on getting black removal. So I kind of just leaned more into taking all the counters, because that works pretty similarly to taking black removal. It's just having counters. You just kind of keep them up for your opponent's game-winning plays. And my latest WoW card was probably, I think the Pestilence Siphoner kind of overperformed. It could have just been the pod I was in. I feel not a lot of people had all the Hex Gold Slashes. So it felt like red was a little bit underdrafted, which kind of saved me a little bit. Made my life a little easier in the poison deck. And what lesson did I learn from the draft? Kind of none. I just ended up in Dimir, just thinking it was the strongest place for where I was at the table. But
Hold your horses. Did you say none?
I guess
this is a
more
completely
creatures.
different Dimir deck
I have
than
more
you've ever
creatures.
played.
I've played decks like this before and had reasonable success with them. I guess like the Meldweb Curator is like the only real card in this deck that I like really haven't normally played in Dimir.
But this deck has significantly more creatures, and there's no way. I mean, maybe there is a way, but like I haven't seen you do it. You're not even painting the whole picture. You have 13 cards that say draw a card.
Yeah, that's pretty typical of Dimir. The thing that was like different about this one specifically was the 2 distorted curiosities. I
Yeah.
usually don't get those for free.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were mega free. They were my last picks. Like they were mega free. So like that's the big thing, I think. The creatures were just there in place of the removal that I didn't get.
Like all of
Honestly.
this draw supporting Blue Sun's Twilight
Yeah.
is just
it worked very
yeah.
well.
It's one of the best things that you can do when you like get an early Blue Suns, right? Is like have ways to find it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Dimir is already pretty good at that, right? Like it's the most card draw in the deck in this format. Like your deck is card
Experimental
draw.
augury.
Like your win con is card draw, right? Like your
He's
card
burying
draw
cards.
spells actually kill your opponent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them do, right? Like experimental augury and Vivisurgeon's Insight, the infectious inquiry, like they all, with the exception of distorted curiosity, like all the spells that draw cards usually kill your opponent faster.
Yeah, and Distorted Curiosity only costing 1 is just absurd.
It's silly. It feels so dumb to cast it for 1.
Yeah.
Like, yep. And then as far as the games went, it was really tricky knowing when to commit to playing a creature versus just like keeping up a counter spell. Specifically when you're running like 4 Bring the Endings.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a dance a little bit, like trying to figure out whether or not. Usually duress helps with that, but I wasn't even able to get a duress. So
I think it's better because Bring the Ending is your only real removal spell in this deck, so you got to keep up your removal.
I did most of the time.
Yeah.
And the Skull Dweller really helped with that. Like the fact that I was able to like keep the if I was ever able to play the Skull Dweller on 1,
Yeah, you can
like
hold the
then
board.
I could like keep my removal up.
Yeah.
My, just a blank a turn 2 play.
Isn't it generally better to save your counter spells for later in the game and play your
Not
bodies
necessarily in
early?
Dimir. Not necessarily in Dimir. Like, let's say my opponent has like a 2/2 first striker. My deck doesn't really have a real meaningful way to deal with that outside of like Mesmerizing Dose and the Annoyant. My 1 copy of Annoyant and 1 copy of Mesmerizing Dose. So like it's kinda like the best way I can deal with it is just countering it.
Mhm.
Well, but like a 2/2 first striker puts you on a 10 turn clock, which I think you're like fine with, right?
Not necessarily, because like what if they're able to like give me Corrupted, which then turns on their 2 mana 1/3 that gives all their creatures +1/+0.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then they play the green white uncommon. Like it snowballs. That deck snowballs pretty hard.
Yeah.
I think you do that mainly when you have like really light counters in your deck. With 4 counter spells in the deck, like you just got to use them more aggressively because you just have more of them in your deck. And then with the counter spells, like if you have 1 or 2, sometimes you just need it for their silver bullet. You know, if there's a card in their deck that you just know you cannot beat, and it's like if this card happens, I'm done. And you just got to sit there and hold it, just knowing that it's going to happen. And then when you get it, you're going to win the game because you've countered their, major overcard or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I probably average playing like 3 counter spells per game.
Yeah.
Like, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I
you
was
had
just
enough card
digging
draw.
through my deck, right? Yeah.
It's kind of cool that you can experimental augury on there, and like in response to the spell, I was like, "Oh, I got my Bring the Ending now." Boom, just get you.
I did that, right? Like I did that quite a bit. Yeah.
Sounds like it was good. This is like looks good on paper.
Yeah, like experimental augury and to Bring the Ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
That's pretty good. You'd expect
What's
that.
even more disgusting is like experimental augury while my opponent's at 2 poison counters to get them to the 3rd one to turn it into a legit counter spell that I find off the top 3 cards in my library. Like I've definitely done that too.
Yeah. So your best like kind of play pattern here is just like 1 drop toxic guy, 2 drop toxic guy, and then just
that's ideal, right?
Yeah, it's just like I think that's where the creatures really helped this deck kind of go over the hump that you kind of had the past couple of weeks. I mean, clearly it worked out because you won this week.
I think I also did like there's 2 different like this is just like the slightly this probably plays like 4 more creatures than I normally do, right?
Yeah, I never really see you play.
I usually play between anywhere between like 4 to 6 usually.
Yeah.
And this one has 10 creatures in it.
From what I've seen, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
From what I've seen, the big difference here is just the amount of draw. Like I know you say it's like not different, but like seeing
the distorted curiosity.
The distorted curiosities, the 3 inquiries, I think is higher than I've seen you play.
I've played up to 3, but like 3 is pretty questionable for sure.
Yeah.
Like the 6 life, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the huge difference. And then the Blue Suns obviously just puts it.
Yeah, the Blue Suns helped a lot for sure.
Was there an off chance that you could have just done 14 lands instead of 15 with this crazy amount of 2 drops that you have, like Chad levels of 2 drops?
I had 14 to begin with. like also just a funny little thing. I was counting the amount of cards I had afterwards. Because like whenever I was pile shuffling, because I normally pile shuffle, I was counting. I was like, this isn't the normal amount that I normally have. And I looked afterwards, I had 43 cards.
Oh my gosh.
So you're saying you could have run 14 if you had been disciplined and had 40.
No, what I was saying was I did have 14, and then I ended up
43.
I mean, I did have 14, and I ended up just putting one more island in.
So you just went to 44.
I think I was at 42, and then I went to 43.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
That's funny.
So
42, you finally
15 lands.
So you finally made it work, Robi. After probably
I don't think
5
it always
weeks.
works. I think my matchups were.
How many weeks has it been if you've been trying this deck to make it work?
Probably 3, I think.
Yeah,
3.
Is it 3?
It's not too bad. It's like the lowest win rate deck.
The hard work pays off, right? Like eventually you're gonna.
I had to grind it.
Yeah,
I had to learn
you
it.
did grind it. It's funny because people started knowing like Robi was drafting this deck. They're like, "Oh, there's a duress there. Robi needs that."
Yeah, I don't think I got hate drafted this week. I did see a lot of people with random Gataxian Anatomus, the 2/5. Like, I asked somebody who took one. I was like, "Why'd you take that?" He was like, "I can't beat it. I literally can't beat it."
There you go. Smart.
Yeah, it's fine. I think it might have been better that I didn't have it. Honestly,
deep in your
I would have played one, but yep.
Deep in your heart of hearts, did you feel like a sellout kind of this week?
Nah. Because like if I would have had Annoying with Afflictions, I would have played them over the Siphoners.
Oof.
If I had them, I would have played them over like if I had Vraska's Fall, I would have picked it over a Trawler Drake. Like I just worked with what I had.
Fair enough. What was your average life paid per game?
Like 6. Like probably 6, honestly. Because like I also had that ambulatory edifice.
Right.
So like that too. So I have a total of 8 damage in my deck directly to my face. Like which is pretty sus, but it worked out. I didn't have to face a turbo aggro deck. I think I would have.
Yeah, this deck is pretty soft to that. Looks a little soft to it if you don't get your 1 drops.
Yeah, the 1 drops like hangs me in, keeps me in with it.
Yeah,
even with your
Voiding Hybrid does good work too.
It does, but with the amount of card draw you have, like you just can't beat an aggro deck, right? Like because you're just spending most of your turns just tapping out, drawing cards.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, and I didn't get the Whisper of the the dross.
The dross. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That would have been very nice. The 1 mana 1/1 proliferate. -1/-1 proliferate.
There's a lot more Malcator's Watchers out there these days.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically the deck. Worked good.
Nice.
It was free. So tell us about this wild pile you got going on, Andrew. Like, he walked over and showed me this. I was like, what in the world happened in this draft? Like,
we were having fun this week.
This is wild.
Yeah, so I played a blue, black, green Planeswalkers deck. And I say Planeswalkers deck because I first picked this was a money pick, I think, but it turned out to be good. Ickermoon Gauntlet. It's the to cost two colors and a blue for, and then was an artifact, and then it gives all your Planeswalkers 0. They get to proliferate, and then if they have 12, you get to take off, or when they get to 12 loyalty, you can remove 12 loyalty from them and take an extra turn. And then it also has the ability where when you play a non-creature spell, you get to put a counter of something of a same type on whatever things have a counter. So if you have a Planeswalker out there, you put another loyalty counter. You have an oil guy, put another oil counter on it. And so I took it because, well, it's like, it's a pretty high value card, like money.
It's like $20, yeah.
Something like that. So I said, okay, I just don't want to pass that, right? And so I kind of took it as just like, okay, this is gonna be a money card, whatever. And then it was pack 3. I opened up a Nissa. It's the triple. It's like quad green with 2 Phyrexian green and 3. So, and I was firmly in black blue at this point. And so I popped that. I said, oh wait, that works pretty well at the Ickermoon Gauntlet. And then I got proceeded to be past the Tyvar Jubilant Brawler. It's the 1 colorless black green Planeswalker that untaps a creature and kind of gives your coming to like the guys that have tap abilities, it gives them haste. And then it mills 3, and then you get to pull back a 2-drop from your graveyard. And I said, ooh, 2 Planeswalkers. This is kind of cool. I got this Ickermoon Gauntlet. I think I'm going to do it. How many times do you get to have Planeswalkers in this set? So I was like, this is just too funny. And so I ended up going 2-0-1. So I had a draw in the last round. This deck, I built it just for the fact that I knew I was going to get to Nissa. And so I kind of built the deck accordingly. I had Glistener Seers in the deck. That's the 03 1 blue. It's not a wall, it's just a 03, and it comes in with 3 oil counters on it. You can remove an oil counter to scry 1. And so that was pretty good about just kind of holding the ground early. At Bilious Skull Wielder, the 1/1 guy that Robi was talking about earlier with Death Touch. Guy's great, just good at holding the ground if you get him early. And then I just had a bunch of value kind of creatures, like Nim Razor Paladin was really good in this deck. It was actually one of the sicker plays was just playing the Nim Razor on 6 and bringing back my Bilious Skull Wielder. Like that was pretty strong. You just hold the game until you get the Nissa. Some of the other cool things, it's just grindy is grindy. Experimental Augury was pretty good. I've been hearing people chatter about how good that card is in these kind of oily type decks, and I thought it was pretty good just to get another scry on my guy, put a counter on my Icar synthesizer. It'd be kind of cool with the Planeswalkers, though I never got to do it, but it was really good with Tablet of Completion as well. That's the rare artifact. It costs 2. You can tap it to put an oil counter on it. If you have 3 or more oil counters, you get to tap it to create a colorless mana. And then if you have 5 or more, then you get to tap it, pay 1 and tap it, and then you get to draw a card. And so I was just kind of proliferating on that, putting some more counters on it. So it's kind of cool with the synthesizer and some of the other proliferate kind of things I had in my deck. Notable rares or mythics in my deck.
Lots of them.
Lots of them. I got them all. No, I'm just kidding. No, I had Nissa. I had a Tyvar. I had Ickermoon Gauntlet, Tablet of Completion, which I did play quite a bit of. I was lucky enough to draw that most of my games. And then I have Baron Executioner of Thane. That's the guy. He's a 2/2 for 1 colorless and 1 black. And then when something goes to the graveyard, you get to drain 2, gain 2. And so that was kind of cool for just keeping me into the late game. Some of the other things some of the weaknesses of this deck I thought were just Actually, my biggest weakness was time in the round. Like, it just took so long for me to win this thing because I'd hold down the ground and just start like gaining incremental advantage with the oil gorger troll. That's the 3 colorless double green. When it enters the battlefield, it's a 3/4. When it enters battlefield, you get to gain 3 life, so that's keeping you in the game a little bit longer. And then if you have an oil counter, which I had a lot of oily guys, he gets to draw a card. And so I was drawing cards, and it was kind of cool on that front. I had a really crazy last. It was in pack 2, I think, and there was a contagious Vorak that just went around. And I said, "What is this doing in the pack?" I was sitting on a pot of 6, and I think it was like a 6-pick contagious Vorak, and I just kind of took it. I was firmly in blue-black at this point, and I just took it because, like, why not? It's such a good card. Like, yeah, I just didn't want anybody to play it, but I was just like, this card is insanely good. And then lo and behold, I end up playing it in the end because I just had that Nissa and some random green cards just all over the place. Something that was just, I had fun this week. Like, honestly, I was just having a good time. It was really good. And then, I mean, people looked at my deck and they see the Ickermoon Gauntlet. It's like, isn't that win more? And I'm saying it's win more fun though. And I was just having a blast. People knew that I had it in my deck, and they were just like, "Oh man, your planeswalkers!" I was like, "Yeah, I know my planeswalkers. I'm gonna get my Ickermoon Gauntlet. I'm gonna keep proliferating." It's just like Nissa. I mean, if you know anything or have the the fortunate time to play with Nissa, it's just you +1 and you just win the game.
Yeah, yes, basically.
You don't need to proliferate her more. Like, it's just like,
no,
it's easy mode. And so yeah, and then something I kind of realized now, we keep talking about this format being such like a aggressive, oh my gosh, the white deck is just going to get you like on turn 5 or something like that, or this Gruul deck just going to overrun you. Turn 6, you're just gone, or you get these 1-drop, 2-drop poison guys. Slow and grindy's viable, people. Slow and grindy's viable, like Robi's deck. Slow and grindy. My deck this week, slow and grindy.
I think
Robi's deck wasn't that slow.
I think Ryan's deck was slow and grindy, for sure. Like, he definitely had like there's 2 real decks in this format, like attacking decks and blocking decks, I think. And then there's like Dimir, which does nothing. But
like, how is Robi's? Well, you said Robi's deck was not slow. Like,
it wasn't really like hardcore blocking deck.
Yeah, but it's like with Robi's deck, like once you're at 7, you're at 10. Like, he controls the game and like kind of slowly gets you to 7, but he can have like he can have explosive starts where he gets you to 3 super early. Yeah. And then I'm sure he could end the game by like turn 8 if he does that, right?
Yeah, I definitely had like turn 3 corrupted in this deck, which is wild. Yeah.
And then you just end the game very fast after that.
It's just like it's the illusion of it, right? Like it's the danger of it, right? Like, once you get to the certain level of poison, I remember we talked about that a couple of weeks back, just the danger of being like, I'm at 7, I'm probably dead already. Like, some of these decks are like, I think that's it, because you have no way of getting rid of the poison like in any kind of meaningful way. And then he doesn't even attack you on that access. But yeah, I don't think, it's kind of a slower combo deck. Like, just like, okay, I finally get you there. Sure. Like, every turn you got a countdown clock of 10, right? Like,
I think it was like faster than your deck and my deck.
No, my deck's super slow. Yeah. God, I have no illusions that this deck is winning. The games that I had won, I think I may have had like 9 cards left in my library. Like, all the games, just from drawing extra cards on tablet, the oil gorger, the whatever, just incremental things, or scrying a bunch of lands at the bottom too, surgically spell.
I will say about Andrew's deck, this is like the cutest deck I've seen in a minute. This is like, there's a lot of like very, very ridiculous synergy in this too. Yeah. Like, I could just see all of it. Like, Armored Scrap Gorger has oil counters, which works with Oil Gorger Troll, which works with all this proliferate stuff, which works with like, it's like there's a lot of stuff which like works with like making his mana better, which gets him to his Nissa, which like I definitely see like this just looking at this like makes the wheels in my brain start moving.
Even Time Art.
There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Even Tyvar with the Glistener Seer and the Armored Scrap Gorger.
Yeah, that's like I said something about that. It's mega cute. There's like a lot of weird, cute little synergy, and I really like this deck. It's very interesting.
I had a lot of fun playing it. I just wish I had a little bit more time in that last round. That last game, I was playing against a blue-white artifact deck, so it was a full-on beatdown deck. Had the microsynth guard in there, making like 1/5 or 1x. Was it what's the X5? Ryan, what's the guy?
Yeah, the Cephalopod Sentry.
Cephalopod Sentry is like copy my Sentry, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And so we had two just the first game. It was like he just overran me pretty bad. I stumbled on some mana. I'm playing 3 colors. It's gonna happen. And then the second game, we had this amazing just grind fest. I was at 1 life, I think, and like 9 poison or something when the game ended. I finally got him on like some crazy alpha strike. And then the third game, we kind of ran out of time a little bit. It was kind of unfortunate. There was a little bit of clock issue going on there, and I think we were in that tipping point of a game too, where you're just like, I think I'm gonna win, and my opponent's like, I think I'm gonna win, and it's just like, dang, and we didn't get the satisfaction of that because we were just at the end, and so it was like, okay, we're just gonna play for a tie now at this point because we were just so close to like any kind of move there would have just been death on one turn, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but he took me to the limit, man. It was a lot of fun.
I was going to give you a little bit of crap about your Cruel Grimnarch, which is the 6 mana 5/5 ETB they discard or you gain for. But looking at your deck, it's like one of the 3 ways you can actually win a game. There's like exactly 3 ways you can win in this deck, and they all cost at least 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I think like I was a little skeptical on it, but like after looking at all of it, it's like this is probably okay.
I hear the guy I've heard like good stats on 17 lands. Is that true? Like
anecdotal stats.
Very anecdotal stats.
I listened to this really nice podcast a couple days ago at work, and the guys were arguing about Cruel Grimnarch and why he was up there.
Robi was real salty about it.
Do we even talk about that in the podcast?
I don't think we did. I think that was
literally all pre-podcast.
I was so mad because I was like, we can't lie to the people, Ryan. Like we can't put that Cruel Grimnarch is good. People are gonna put it in their decks. Like
Robi is sitting over here acting like he has journalistic integrity just for the pod.
I will say, like, I've never looked at a deck and been like, oh, Cruel Grimnarch, that looks fine. Other than this deck, honestly. Like, it looks fine. It looks fine, honestly.
It was pretty reasonable. I gotta say, Whisper the Dross is like much better than I thought it was.
Yeah,
it's kind of
mega good.
Yeah,
people are catching on. I don't get them for free anymore. But
yeah, it surprised me. I was attacking with that Oil Gorger into 4/4s and just getting them. I was like, oh man, it was like proliferating on the. Obviously, I got a bunch of cool stuff with for proliferate counters. I actually ran out of dice at one point because I just had so many guys on the field. But yeah, that was it was a lot of fun.
Didn't you listen to Robi's tip 4 weeks ago? You need a lot of dice.
I did. I had to go.
Yeah. This is might be the dice deck.
Oh yeah, I definitely had like 10 D10s, and I had to bust out my auxiliary D10s for this.
That's hilarious. I will say too, there's also cute tricks you can do with Whisper of the Dross with Voidwing Hybrid for sure. Like I've definitely come into weird lines where like you block a first striker with Voidwing Hybrid, and like you play a Whisper of the Dross after the first strike damage to get your guy back, and I've definitely come into weird territory with Whisper of the Dross and Voidwing Hybrid.
Yeah, I think Ichor Synthesizer and Armored Scrap Gorger are pretty scary with like Whisper of the Dross, right?
Yeah.
Like Armored Scrap Gorger can have 1 counter on it and be untapped. Then you block, tap for a black, exile something, and proliferate, and now it's a 3/3. Like, that's kind of a blowout.
Oh, yeah.
And it kills like an Oil Gorger troll attacking it. Like, it's wild. Yeah.
Or like you kill something else too, and you just like almost win the game right there.
Yeah, like definitely very scary. There's a lot of synergy in this deck. I'm impressed by it. Like when I was first looking at it, it looked mega jank. I see it a little bit more. I think you might have needed maybe a couple of terramorphic expanses.
Yeah.
Maybe a prophetic prism if you could have got it, but
I had a Dune mover right here. That card's good.
That card is very good.
Wasn't it for you?
Didn't it feel mega good?
It did feel all right. I actually found my third color with it most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you can just like trade it for nothing, and it's fine.
I definitely
did its job.
2 little forests. I took 4 damage from that Nissa every time I played it. I think one time I took 2 damage. Just never had quad. Never
Is the new meta just dealing damage to yourself? Because like I feel like it is.
No, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work.
We're back in
Sometimes it feels mega bad.
Ambulatory Artifice. That guy might as well say Phyrexian mana on it because that dude's always taking 2 life from me every time.
Me too. I've come around to him a little bit more.
Oh, that guy's good.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. If people are willing.
Did you ever take a second turn?
No.
Oh, yeah. No. It doesn't even matter. It's just like Ichor Gauntlet's just there for style points, right?
Yeah. I sided out most of the game. I had integrity. I put it in the deck and then I never sideboarded it out. Or I sideboarded after the games, but I always restored it back in.
just like in case you got the screenshot, right? Yeah. like to get those wacky screenshots and like the moments that we all love where we just do something absolutely insane. You gotta put bad cards in your deck.
Do it for the gram. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do it for the gram.
Just for the clout of having it in there.
There you go.
It's cute. Yeah, this is a sweet deck though, Andrew.
Thanks. Yep. Had a lot of fun. All right.
Tell us about your deck, Ryan. Andrew already did.
Hey, I'll tell you about it again. Don't worry.
The disrespect.
I like this deck. Yeah,
I ended up in Systemic Splash Red. I first picked a Hex Gold Slash, and then I basically moved in when I got a 6th pick Contagious Vorak, followed by like 2 turns later another Contagious Vorak, and I was really flip flopping between blue white and green red, like with my first, like the entire first pack, basically. Like I would take a green card, then I would take like a blue white card, then I'd take a red card, then I would take a blue white card, and then I was like, I'm just gonna do blue green. Like and then in pack 1, I looked at my stuff and I was like, I just have a ton of blue and I have a ton of green, and I also got second pick Blue Sun's Twilight.
Oh man.
which is wild.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
The disrespect on blue is absurd.
How was that?
I get it. It's a hard deck to play. Blue punishes you for intuitively drafting. It does.
Was it like a pack 1, pack 2, pack 3 when you got
pack 1?
Oh.
Pack 1, pick 2. Hex Gold Slash followed by Blue Sun's Twilight.
That's like the exact thing that happened to me, right?
We gotta spec a little bit more, people. Like we don't have to be hard setting colors on pack
1. I don't disagree with people passing Blue Sun's Twilight. Because people will have this reaction where they will get a Blue Sun's Twilight first pick at some point in their drafting career of this format.
Yeah.
And they will take it, and then they will intuitively draft the cards that make the most sense for the deck, and they will just auto lose. Because drafting blue in this format is so unintuitive that you get mega punished for it. So nobody even wants to mess with it. It's only the people who grind it out and really like perfect these decks that really benefit from it.
Yeah, blue is like, it's almost like blue is 2, even 3 colors, really, in this format. Because there's like a Dimir blue deck that only wants like a certain like portion of the blue cards, right? Then there's an Artifacts blue deck that only wants a different portion of the cards. Then there's like a whole nother blue deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with that also wants like a completely different portion of the cards. And
Which
they like
poison.
They like share like mesmerizing dose. Like
yeah. There is I think that out there in the wild there is a Dimir deck that looks more like this deck, but with no green cards, for sure. Like that doesn't use poison, that just like has random black cards.
Like and like
yeah. That's not a poison deck that just like is relying on the Raptors.
There's like an oil counter blue deck. There's a artifact blue deck and there's a poison blue deck. And none of the cards from any of those decks go in like any of the other decks.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like almost 3 different colors, but there's all
blue red too. There is blue red too.
That's oil. That goes with blue green too, right?
Yeah,
like blue red, blue green are interchangeable. Yeah.
I also think that there's a blue black deck that looks like this too, like a blue black kind of oil deck, which is kind of weird, but yeah. That's like the most rare. But
that one would be the hardest to pull off, I think. Yeah, but I think it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also looks just like this, like you said. But anyway, so I moved into green, got some late stuff. I ended up, really leaning on the Gataxian Raptors. Those are the 1/4 flyers for 3 that come into play with 3 oil counters. You can remove oil to +1, -1. And those cards were very good. I was basically like a deck that relied on having good blocks.
Mm-hmm. This is a blocking deck for sure.
Yeah, like Gataxian Raptor traded with a dude in a trick like 3 times, which is like insane, right?
Yeah.
Like insane. Thrumming Bird was like kind of good in this deck, which is kind of wild. I wish I would have seen Tainted Observer more. I only saw it once and it got countered. So I also never saw Serum Core Chimera.
Sorry.
But Tamiyo's Immobilizer, as always, all-star. With Proliferate, it's just even better, like with this much Proliferate. But the deck was good. It was fun. It was something different. Like I tried to do Simic. I think I don't know if Simic can work without like even more premium cards. And I had quite a bit of premium cards. Like I had Tamiyo's Immobilizer, I had 2 Gataxian Raptors, 2 Vorax, the green blue signpost, Trawler Drake, Thrumming Bird, Canker Bloom, Blue Suns, and Incubation Sac. And like I felt like it still just wasn't quite good enough, which is kind of wild. You know what I mean?
I think some of the cards that you just mentioned aren't the green blue best cards. Like I don't think the Immobilizer, I think it's fine. It's like super good, but it's definitely not a blue green like all-star. Like I don't think that it's better in blue green than like let's say like the Evolving Adaptive. I think on 17 lands that is the number 1 win rate card in blue green, but yeah.
I really did like in this deck just because I could proliferate once or twice on it, and I got like 6 uses out of it instead of 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like it definitely wasn't one of my best cards for sure. Like I think Cinder Slash Ravager was besides Blue Suns, Cinder Slash Ravager. That's the red green signpost, which is the reason I splash red. 5/5 Vigilance and ETB's deal 1. I think that was probably my best card.
Yeah.
Like it felt really good when I played it. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched you just hose someone with it one day.
Yeah, it was very good. And then like because of that, I splashed Hex Gold Slash and Serum Core Chimera. I never played the Serum Core Chimera or the Hex Gold Slash. Like I literally never drew them, so it was like fine, right? I was getting the red super late, and then against Robi, I like literally sideboarded like 7 cards.
I saw it, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, Ryan. Like
I was like, I just can't beat someone that draws their entire deck with this deck and has 4 counters to back up.
That was the thing. Like, this deck is so sweet, and I love it, right? You just got screwed by a horrible matchup in the finals, right? Like, it was just like I think Demir has like insane matchups sometimes.
Yeah.
For sure. Where it's just like the opponent just feels like super, like they can't do literally anything.
Yeah. Like all those creatures that are like good at blocking are bad against you, right? Like
with the exception of the spider, the 1/3.
Yeah, that was sided in.
You brought that in, right? Like that was very good.
But like
I think that could have even been main board.
Yeah, probably. Like it was close. I just had to make cuts. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're doing layoffs. Sorry, but you gotta go. Like Rustvine Cultivator, garbage against you. Glistener Seer, garbage against you. Also, my best 2 cards, Blue Suns Twilight and Cinder Slash Ravager, that cost 5 or 7. Garbage against 4 counters. Like they're just never gonna resolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a game where Ryan was just attacking with his Rustvine Cultivators.
Yeah. Just into like Robi blocked it with a 1/1 death touch, I think.
Yeah.
But with the amount of 4 drops and 3 drops you have in here, the cultivators are kind of necessary evil, though, right? Like,
yeah, against Robi, it was like the deck was completely different. Like I cut red, I cut everything that costs 4 or more besides a 1 Tamiyo's immobilizer, and I just made it like literally as fast as it could be.
So you think that blue-green base is pretty strong for splashing, or just in general, do you think you could stand on its own?
Like I just think it's almost free to splash. I think like there's no reason for it to stand on its own unless you just get hyper premium stuff.
Yeah. I think you're like 3 or 4 premium cards from this being insane.
What's your take on just like basically high premium good stuff cards versus, is it better than synergy?
It depends, right? Like it depends on your color pairs and your matchups, but like it can be, right? Like your deck, well, not even your deck, but like my last week's deck would have been very hard for any deck to beat, and it just didn't have as many bad matchups as like a synergy deck. Because like this deck like was very high synergy. Like I know it doesn't look like it, but like almost everything had oil counters. I had like 4 or 5 ways to proliferate. I don't know, like it all worked together like quite a bit. Like it was either getting me oil counters, or it's fixing my mana, or it's killing something. Like that's every single card in this deck.
Yeah, there's very few things in here that look like they don't really work together. It's just kind of, they look like a hodgepodge, but you got to really dig deep into it and realize there's a shit ton of oil counters, a lot of proliferate going on here. Except for those dune movers, but those are necessary.
Yeah, and like even those, if they get some poison, like the proliferate can like kind of really take off with thrumming birds and stuff, right?
Like I wouldn't be surprised if you were able to poison someone.
Yeah, like I think if I ever could have drawn Tainted Observers early or like Thrumming Birds early, I definitely could have, right?
Yeah, and you said this beforehand too, like that our pod too just didn't have enough support for your deck.
Yeah,
because like it was wide open and you still only got 2 raptors and nobody else took them, right? Like I kind of sympathize with that for sure. Like,
and 1 Tainted Observer, right?
And 1 Tainted Observer, and it was like super late too.
Yeah,
I considered taking it, but
I think like I do think like Tainted Observer is like a very good card in a vacuum, right?
I agree,
but it's just
it's a 2/3 for 3.
Yeah, with flying and poison.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
Like unlimited proliferate potentially.
Yeah,
like
it's so good.
It's like in a vacuum, it could be the like one of the best signposts, but it's just like. But I feel like
does not care about poison hardly at all. Like
imagine
no corrupt Paros. Like,
well, like what if you go into the higher green deck though? Like you go with the. Was it Contagious Vorak, but what's the 4/4 dinosaur that swings for haste?
Yeah.
Atrocity or whatever.
You can go Toxic Atrocity.
You would have played that, wouldn't you have?
Oh, maybe. I might have gutted my top end too much, honestly. Like I maybe should have went higher top end. I was just I kind of just had a shell that could deal with aggro, and then I like try to evolve it post board. But I just think like if you could ever like resolve 2 Tainted Observers and then play like some Rustvine Cultivators and double proliferate and stuff, like that would just be disgusting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was fun.
I think somewhere out in the wild, somebody's had a deck with like 3 or 4 Voidwing hybrids and like 3 or 4 Tainted Observers, and it's unbeatable. like, like somewhere out in the wild, somebody's done that.
Yeah, that would be funny. Like Contagious Vorax, Tainted Observers, and Voidwing hybrids. Yeah,
that'd be silly. A bunch of rats.
Yeah, but it was fine. Like it was fun. I kind of got wowed by like a super late pick in the draft. I opened an Infectious Bite, and it came all the way around. I think I took Incubation Sac over it because I was like, Incubation Sac just works better for me.
Yeah,
but an Incubation
Sac serious card against my deck for sure.
Yeah, it was very good. Like once I started pumping out 3/3s, like the game was just gonna end soon. But yeah, it was fun. Like I would try it again. I just think like it has to be super, super, super open.
Yeah, it was pretty open for you. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty open. And one of the biggest things I learned is like I already had an inkling of this, like I already kind of felt this way in my heart of hearts, but Gitaxian Raptor's the truth. Like it's
Yep.
the truth.
Yep.
Ben Stark.
I don't play it, but yeah, I agree with you.
It's funny. Andrew came up talking about Ben Stark and it's like he's like, yeah, did you listen to that podcast? I was like, no. He's like, yeah, you're basically just drafting exactly everything Ben Stark was talking about.
Yeah, the
That's always
second
a good
best
time
color
to
on the
hear,
planet.
right? Like,
Talking about needing more glistener seers, raptors. I'm like, oh man, this is exactly what that whole podcast was about.
yeah.
Would you say it's the top common in blue?
It's just blue, like I said, is just 3 different decks. Like it's the top common for this blue deck, but
Yeah.
it's not the top common for the blue artifact deck, and it's not the top
It's
common
not
for the
coming for
Dimir.
poison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not.
Which I still don't think anyone actually thinks is a real deck. Like,
Like,
I hardly hear people
Rare that
talk
it
about it.
comes together good enough to win a tournament.
Yeah, it really matters my matchups too, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if I ever get like 2 black-white people in a row, like it's just impossible to win. Like crawling chorus and a double crawling chorus, I just can't beat that.
Yeah.
This beats literally anything my deck could ever do.
Anything that makes 2 bodies. Just
Yeah. Yeah. Chimney Ravel isn't as bad though, because it comes down way later.
yeah.
Like on 4, I should have a counter up, right?
Yeah.
Like I will have one against any red deck because I'm afraid of Chimney Ravel.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
4 and 5 problem turns. Yep,
Nice.
looks good though. I'm impressed by it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Very good.
I would try it again. I think I piloted my spot almost as well as I could have.
Like if you were seeing like Tainted Observers, and like you got the Blue Sun's Twilight too, right?
Yeah.
I definitely
Or
flirted
actually-
with being blue green, but I don't think I was in the right spot for it. Like
I think I opened the Tainted Observer and sent it around just because like I knew I was getting it back. Like
yeah, I took something dumb over it, like a prologue or a counter spell or something.
I have a question for you guys. Do you find yourself unsure what to do on your turn?
All the time.
Do you feel like your decks underperform?
Sometimes
We can help.
Ryan can.
Learn pilot. Ryan can't?
I said Ryan can.
Oh,
Ryan can.
Yeah, right.
That's what
Can.
we mean. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was about to be
we can. We can.
wildly
Yeah.
offended.
No, I wasn't about to say that.
No, you're about to completely derail me. Okay.
No.
I'm kind of a cynic, so I could kind of hear, the cynicism and
Yeah,
everything.
no, it's good.
Okay. So we made a list of I made a list, and these guys are gonna help me like kind of put their input on it. But I made a list of kind of what questions and what goes through my mind every turn. So we're gonna start with the upkeep phase. And at the upkeep phase, I only ask myself one question, and it's what triggers do I need to be aware of this turn?
Yep.
You guys you want to add to that?
Sometimes like there's stuff other than triggers. Like sometimes I think during my upkeep, like, does it benefit me to play a spell before I draw? Like sometimes it is correct, right?
Yeah, sometimes you have like a scry or something.
Or you scry, like yeah. I think that's probably going to be like the number one thing in this one.
It's triggers and activated abilities you really got to look for on your cards. The scry is definitely the one to do.
How I kind of think of it is like, is there anything that I can do right now during my upkeep? And then like I think, why would I do this? Like, is it beneficial for me to do this? Not so much in this format, but yeah.
Yeah, it does happen sometimes. That's kind of like a rarer case.
Yeah.
But like Glistener Seer now is
Glistener Seer. Another good example, I think, is one. Remember in Strixhaven with the Scry Lance?
Yep.
I would a lot of times do that during my upkeep to.
That's just such a slippery slope, right? Like, wouldn't you rather do that at your opponent's in turn? But like once you do it once, you kind of have to like keep doing it at your upkeep, and then just.
There are reasons why you would, like, if you have like a counter spell, right?
Or if you want to
keep
it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's reasons for it.
Yeah. But the main one, and I'm kind of trying to keep this somewhat light with like more expansions after, after
Yeah, I'm going too deep. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. That's a very good point. Yeah. There are some activated abilities that you sometimes want to do on the upcap, like scrying with the 0-3 guy sometimes, because sometimes you really need an answer, right? Like, okay. And then pre-combat, I have 3, and I try to keep these down to 3 because I had like a billion at the start. So this is just an intro. The first one I ask is, can I win this turn or can I win next turn?
That's probably the most important one, right?
That's the most important. You should definitely have that in your mind every turn. Can I win right now? Because people miss lethal all the time. Like all the time.
All the time, yeah. We do too. We for sure do too, yeah.
Yeah.
Overlook it. Try to play too fast, whatever. Like the clock starts coming into our head. I think we miss it more in paper. At least I definitely miss it maybe more in paper than I do on arena. But
I do too, yeah.
I think always do like a life total check, especially when you're deeper into the game. Sometimes you just get so bogged down in trying to like be defensive or try to do whatever. You forget you might have to be the beatdown at that point.
Yep. And then I ask, like, what row does my opponent have to win? Or how do I lose this game? And can I not lose that way? Do I have an answer? If I have an answer, then I, like to deploy it, or I like to play around, like, so where I won't lose that way and make my opponent win another way. Like, because, like, eventually, like, if you plug up all the leaks, you're going to win the game, right?
Yeah.
My biggest thing about this is I'm just so much more like, I've been playing for a while, and like we read every single card in the set, so like we have a pretty deep knowledge of literally every single card in this format. So I just contextualize it a little bit differently in terms of like, what cards does my opponent have? But that's not going to be the case for most people, right?
Yeah, like I think everyone eventually gets there, right?
Yeah. I mean, like not everybody has the time to like do a set review on every single new set, right?
Right.
Like
I think like right now, there's at least 4 or 5 drafters that we draft with that when you leave 2 mana up, they know every card that you could have, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's just you'll get there eventually. Like newer players will be there, and some of them like get there pretty quick, right? It's just that's kind of like you got to do the research, you have to put in the time, or you have to play a ton, because that's just a ton. That information is super valuable.
Like what mana they leave open and stuff.
Yeah, or like what cards they play. Like Robi played Prologue to Phyresis. I now know 80% of Robi's deck.
Yeah,
you know
exactly,
what I mean?
Right? Like 80% of the cards that are in my deck, and like, it's
yeah. Or you just played the 1/1. What's the Crawling Chorus? I now know 60% of your deck.
And then Andrew plays the Icar Moon Gauntlet, and I don't know what is wrong with him.
Yeah, I now know he has multiple planeswalkers, right?
I don't know that. You don't know that. Like that's such a weird one that would just throw everyone off. Yeah.
And then the last question I ask, and this is the most important thing, is do I have a play that affects or benefits attacks? Because if not, I'm going to do it later. Like if my play does not affect or benefit attacks, I'm not going to do it in my first main phase. And the reason that we do that is because when we turn our stuff sideways, we're so much scarier with open mana. When we're tapped out, I'm just free to double block, triple block, whatever I want to do. Like, it doesn't matter.
So you don't play all your spells pre-combat?
I try to play none unless I have one that directly affects or benefits attacks. And like benefits is weird, like, but you might have like a Thrumming Bird, and you might have like a card that's going to get another counter, or you know what I mean? You just might have some weird stuff that like benefit, and like sometimes the benefit's not even worth it for the open mana.
Just to make it seem scarier. Like if you had like let's say the 4 mana tap something. Like if you have a Thrumming Bird in play, you're gonna want to play that so that way you can get the extra oil counter, right?
Right.
Or play an artifact to activate your Eye of Malcator.
Yep. That's a good one too. Yeah.
Yep. There's lots
Chrome
of
Prowlers.
Chrome Prowlers. Just the Flinsing Raptor. There's lots of stuff.
Good.
I think another important thing, and I think you're probably about to get to this, but even land drop too, right?
Yeah, like
if you don't have a reason to do it, right?
Right. This is deeper, and there are reasons to do it beyond your cards in your hand, right? Like if you play a land drop to represent other things,
something else scary.
Yeah, that's good. But if it's turn 2 and your opponent has like a premium 2-drop and you maybe have a not so premium 2-drop and you don't play your land and block, that makes your opponent more likely to trade because they think, oh, if I just get this 2-drop, then like he missed a land drop. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
you're talking about like actually not playing lands to
like
symbolize something else, like
opponent.
slow roll a land. That's not what I was talking about. That's crazy.
That's an option.
Yeah.
That's an option.
That is an option. I have done that before too, just to like throw people off. But that's like meta game.
Yeah, that like it gets you can.
But
get
I'm talking about like during your main phase, right? Pre-combat.
Yeah. Like I'm saying, like don't even play a land unless it matters because that's more information. Like if your opponent thinks you're stumbling, that changes their options.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they have an anoint and then you swing before you even play your land, they're more likely to fire that anoint off because they think, oh, like he's stumbling. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And like you have to kind of pick and choose when you do that. If you every time don't play your land on your pre-combat main phase, then like your opponent just gets used to that, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I just do it just to throw people.
Yeah. Like I only don't do it when it's important to not do it, if that makes sense. Anyway. But there's a lot that goes into it. We're trying to be intro. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Then I go to the combat phase. And the biggest thing that I do every combat phase, I assume most people do this, but I'm not 100% sure, is when I'm prepping my attack, I plan what I would do in my opponent's shoes every time. Like if I swing like this, how does my opponent react? They have this mana up, they have this creature, what do they do? Right? And then from my opponent's eyes, I look down at my mana and say, what does this represent? Could I have Titanic Growth? Could I have +3/+1? Could I have a bounce spell? You know what I mean? Like all that stuff that goes through my opponent's head, I let my mana represent that. And then I also try to represent that with my attacks, whether I have it or not. Sometimes, depending on the thing. And then I consider, is it okay for me to trade my guy to your guy? Like, is my guy worse than your guy? Do I need to get wide to beat you? Is trading okay for me, or do I need to build a board? Those are the three main questions. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, especially like the trading stuff. Like, there were some good examples of that. Whenever I traded my 1/1 Death Touch guy for your 1/2 Rust-Vine Cultivator, right?
Right.
Like, that was a great trade for you, right?
Like fairly, right? But like you also felt pressure that you had to do it, and I right? Because like like in that situation, it was either I swing with my Rust-Vine Cultivator and like trade with you now, and like maybe get through and have a higher chance to win, or like you swing with your Skull Dweller and then I have to block out on your turn when you have one more card and more mana.
More options.
I thought it was a good play for me to.
I did too. Like I knew you were gonna block it, right? Like
I wasn't never letting it through.
Like I knew you were gonna block it, but like I was fine with it, and like you were fine with it, and sometimes that's okay. But yeah, that's the biggest thing on combat, and I can't stress enough. Like when you attack, you should know what your opponent's gonna do. Like a lot of the time, given the information that you have.
Ryan's an attacking expert.
Yeah. I just remember like several months ago, one time Robi watched me. He's like, "Dude, you attack so much."
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, you do.
So aggressive.
Yeah.
Which
I attack
right.
I attack way less. Yeah, for sure.
It's not always correct, but there's different ways to play. But that's just how I play.
Yeah.
And then post combat main phase.
Yep.
Do I need to not lose or do I need to win faster? That's the first question you ask. If you need to not lose, you need to like slow your opponent down. You need to kill something, mesmerizing dose something, whatever. Mesmerizing dose might affect the attack, so like you might have to do that before attacks, but whatever. Do I need to not lose or do I need to win faster? Which card best supports that strategy? And then is that the most mana efficient play or board efficient play? Or is there something I can do that's better in terms of mana efficiency? Like oftentimes it's best to support your strategy, but early in the game, it's best to be more mana efficient, I think.
Yeah, it really depends on your deck too, right? Like this looks different for each deck, right?
Right. It's kind of hard to make the generalized list.
Generalized thing, especially in this format too.
Yeah.
I think each deck has like a very different strategy. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like it's more efficient. Just you want to be more mana efficient because that's usually how you win is spending more mana, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think mana efficiency early is better, and then I think supporting your strategy, even if it's like a slightly less mana.
Yeah, it's less important later on, right? Because there's like a curve of it, right? Like how important mana efficiency is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because like on turn 9, it doesn't matter if your removal spell costs 5 mana, right?
Yeah.
Like, yep.
Right. And then I just have a few questions on my opponent's turn too.
Hmm.
When you pass turn, you should always like look down, and I think you should always intentionally tap your mana for these reasons and whatever. But like, what am I representing, and how does my opponent react? Am I representing Titanic Growth and my opponent doesn't care? What does that mean? Like, am I representing a counter spell and my opponent doesn't care? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, are they trying to bait it? There's all kinds of like little questions, but basically, what am I representing? And I want to be intentional with what I'm representing to my opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I have the choice of which mana to tap, I'm never leaving double green up. Like I'm leaving green and a blue, or a green and black.
I did this against Ryan, where I like looked down and realized that I just had double black up and couldn't play the counter spell in my hand. like it still happens to everyone. Where
Yeah. And you'll just get better like the more the game goes, like in managing triggers and all that.
Yeah, of course.
And then when your opponent attacks, there's always these little things in your head, like I could double block, I could triple block, I could do this, I could do that. When you make a block, you just have to think, does this block have more of a potential to lose me the game than if I take the damage? Because like if you double block something and then they play like a big buff and they 1 for 2 you, 2 for 1 you, like that's huge in a draft.
Yeah.
That's just huge. So you always think, does this block have potential to lose me the game? So should I do it? Like sometimes you have to put your chips on the table, right? Like sometimes you just have to do it. But
you just say, do you got it? Okay, good.
When you're at 17 life, you don't, right?
No. Life total's a resource, people.
Yep. You can go down to 4 or 5. It's fine.
I went down to 1. It was good.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Like you just
need stabilize.
You get 19 free ones and only 1 matters.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a good start though for people.
The last thing I always try to ask is, do I need to do something at the end of my opponent's turn? Because that's usually when you fire off augury or
augury.
Yeah, your card draw spells
or whatever.
Blow up your sphere lands to draw a card.
Yeah, exactly.
There's sometimes too where like this is kind of like a little bit of a tangent, but like there's sometimes too where like it's correct to like not do that even. Like and this is just like in like counter spell control matchups where like you have a counter spell so your opponent can't shoot your guy down and they know you have that counter spell so they haven't done anything. But if you just tap out at the end of turn, it could be like devastating for you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I think there's always something like on the upkeep too. There's something about sometimes just playing your removal spell before they draw, give them less options too. I'm always a pretty big proponent of that, especially.
Why do you fire it off on the upkeep as opposed to your turn after they've untapped?
Oh, because you want them to spend their mana on their turn. Like you want to tax them on their turn because then it leaves them with less options.
Oh yeah. Okay, against counters and stuff.
Against counters, against
before they draw a card.
Before they draw,
they have less resources and information, right?
Yeah. And then so that's pretty good if you don't think they have like if you think you're going to get them like on a I'm going to pump my guy kind of thing, or if you think they have combat tricks and stuff like that. But if they're just kind of this is a really good creature, like sometimes you want to just blow it up during their upkeep, and they're just like, all right, I got to try to save this thing, or oh darn, I just spent all my resources or something like that. Just less options, less cards in their hand.
When they have really good creatures, you guys have no problem firing off an instant kill spell at the end of your turn, right? Like if they're like out or whatever, yeah. If they're like tapped out and you have like anoint and like if they untap, they could like theoretically protect their thing.
Right? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. Just genuinely like.
But like if like it's a key piece for Robi and he's gonna like try to augury to dig for a counter, upkeep.
Yeah, like why?
People do that to like. I lost a game just like sacking one of my spheres in step which tabbed me out, and I couldn't have the counterspell to counterspell Black Sun's Twilight. Yeah, that happens for sure. Yep. So, anything else on this?
There's a million more things.
This is a hard thing to like.
Yeah,
just thinking about everything you do, I think is like the main gist of this. Like, yeah, there's questions for everything, but just like when it comes up, just kind of like taking a second to think.
Yeah. Take time to play your own game. Don't get intimidated by your opponent trying to rush you or something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like,
this is your game. You guys are both playing it. Play your game.
As long as like you're being reasonable, and you'll know if you're not being reasonable and taking too long, right? Like you'll just go to time every round. Like, and but there's definitely take your time is the big part of this. And like if you see like any of us draft, we all like there are times where we just go deep in the tank. Like just take forever. But
Yep, there's just sometimes super complex board states.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, this is the tip of the iceberg. This is just the beginning. But the main cause of this and the main thing that you should take away, because it's going to be hard to remember all of these questions, right? If you can't justify what you're doing, then why are you doing it? That's the big, like if you don't take away anything else, just to be able to justify what you're doing to like an observer. If you can't do that, then you should be doing something else.
And also, if you're like friendly with other people and you're just like done with your game watching people, like I like to like ask people about stuff too. Like, why did you do that? Like, you can really learn a lot from people just by asking questions. So like, even like your opponent after the game, be like, why did you block like that or something? Like, it's a good way to learn a lot.
Yeah, I wish there was a way that we could like simulate like an opponent that has like an unknown like hand, but he plays against us like the same like opening like 4 cards or whatever, and like we all have the same deck and like see how we'd all play it, because it would be so different. You know what I mean?
It genuinely would, right? Like
it would be pretty different.
Andrew would play the most conservatively. Ryan would attack no matter what. and I would just do nothing. Like it depends on the deck. But
anyway, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask, like comment.
Comment for sure. Like
we're happy to answer them. We're always looking to answer questions and help out. That's what we're doing it for. So last up, we have our alpha of the week.
I don't think it should exist, so I just put a picture of a possum because it's like one of my top 5 favorite animals.
Top 5 favorite animals.
Don't forget to do the alpha slide. Doesn't think it should exist.
I don't think it should.
Definitely.
Possums don't have alphas.
Robi. The demeanor.
Okay, I'll tell you a story.
Broken clock, right? Once.
I might have to cut this afterwards. I've got a good possum story. Actually, I have multiple good possum stories. I'm going to actually choose the more appropriate one first.
Good.
So I had a friend at work. This is like weirdly related to Magic the Gathering too. I had a friend at work, and I took him to draft because I talked to him about Magic, and like we became real good friends because he used to play Magic and had a bunch of old cards, and I ended up taking him to draft with me one night. The first time we ever went to draft. Okay, we both got bodied, right? Like we're pretty new, but yeah, you guys know this friend. His name begins with a G, and so I take him home, okay, and as soon as we pull into his driveway, he's like, "Oh, look, a cat," and I was like, "That's not a cat, buddy. That's not a cat. That's a possum." And he was like, "No, it's not." I was like, "It is," and he was like, "Bet you won't catch it." At that point, I immediately throw my car into park, get out, and fully commit to catching this possum. And so I run after it. It starts booking away from me and runs into an alley, and I get it quartered and just like pet it. like there's a picture. I'll have to get this picture just to show you guys. But there's like a picture of me like petting a possum, like a wild possum, and it was right after Magic one night. So
oh my goodness,
one of the highlights of my life.
Steve Irwin Jr.
It was hissing at me like you just have to calm it down. Just be like shh.
Yeah.
Gently.
So you're a possum whisperer.
Oh, what?
You're a possum whisperer.
Yeah, apparently. That's not the only time I've like picked up a possum in my life.
That's for another alpha day.
Yeah, that's another. Next time I'll tell my other possum story.
Yeah, you gotta tell Robi's crazy alpha stories.
Oh my goodness.
I'll see if I can find the picture. I'll find the picture so Ryan can put it in the video.
Bet.
Alrighty. Bye, guys.
We'll catch y'all boys on the flip.
Yeah.